Wake up early and work out before your brain can figure out what's happening. Okay, boom. Okay, today, what are we doing? We're doing graph interpretation. That's what we'll be looking at today. We'll be looking at graph interpretation. What is graph interpretation? It's basically reading off graphs, right? Reading values or things that we are given to make a graph or to construct or to do something with a graph, right? So it's reading of graphs. Last time we did sketching of cubic functions. So let's look at what we're doing now. So let's look at the general formula for when we are given, let's say, x-intercepts, because we can be given x-intercepts and then they tell you to sketch the graph, right? So how do we deal with that? Or let's say they give us the x-intercepts and they say find the equation of this graph. So there's the formula for x-intercepts. So we'll start with when given. Right? This is when given x-intercepts. So the formula goes like so. Y is equal to A, x minus R1, x minus R2, and then x minus R3. Right? So in this equation, R1, R2, and R3 are the intercepts. No, it's not x and y. No, it is R1, R2, and R3, those are the x-intercepts. So whatever the x coordinate of that intercept is, that's what we put in R1, R2, and R3, right? So R1, R2, and R3 are your x-intercepts, right? So now let's do an example to see what I'm talking about so that we can both be on the same page, right? So my example 1 states, this is what my example 1 looks like. F of x is equal to negative 4x cubed plus bx squared plus cx plus d, right? So this is my equation. This is my example. It says find b, c, and d, right? So calculate. And also calculate. So calculate a, b, c, and d, right? So how do I do that? How do I find A, B, C, and D, right? So what I'll do is, because I know what the general formula for a cubic function is, and I know that this first part is A. The coefficient of x cubed is A. I know this from previous knowledge, right? So if you don't know this, go back a couple videos, go check out the other videos on cubic functions, right? So now let's start. Where do I start? That's my question. Where do I start? So I am given, sorry, I forgot to tell you, given, we wouldn't be able to start anyway if we're not given the intercepts. So let's say my intercepts are negative 3, 0, and then we have 3 and 0, and then we have the last one, which is 4 and 0. Right? So I'll label these ones here 1, 2, and 3. Those are my x-intercepts. I don't have to tell you that these are x-intercepts. You can tell on your own because the y value is 0. So I can just say given these, calculate the values of A, B, and C, and D. So I have to know my rules because they might not tell you that these are x-intercepts. And you have to know that you're going to use the x-intercept formula, even though they didn't tell you that these are x-intercepts, but you should be able to tell by the fact that you see the y's are zeros. So let's start. Let's write the formula down. It's always a good place to start. Even if you don't know where you're going, write the formula down and then you see what you can do from then on. Right? So I have my formula down. So now since I have my formula down, let's see what I have and what I don't have. What do I not have? I don't know what y is. I don't know what A is. Do I? Yes, I do know what A is. Again, from my formula, I know that the coefficient of x cubed is A. So let me write down y is equal to, let me write down my A. My A is negative 4. Okay, we're getting somewhere. I know 1, 2 things. I don't know what y is, so I keep it as y, right? And then do I know what x is? No, I don't have any other points. So I'm working with the intercepts, right? So I'll write the. Once you have covered all of your course content, right, what you should do is you should go and do a past paper, but not just a past paper, right? You should do a timed past paper. So you have to do it under exam conditions, no looking at the book, no looking at your formulas that you are not given and all that. So you have to do it under exam conditions and see how well you do with time and with the content, to see what do you know, what are you struggling with, so that you can work on those parts. X down minus, right? X minus R1. What's the first intercept? The first one, which I labeled 1 over there, is -3, right? So it's -3. So yeah, I have to put in where R1 is. So if I put it as in a bracket -3, -3 times -1 times that negative becomes positive. So it becomes +3, right? For the second part, x is positive, so it's just x minus -3. And for the last part, it's x minus -4. So my equation reads -4x plus 3, x minus 3, and x minus 4. Right? So what do? I have to FOIL. Which part do I want to FOIL first? I will start with the two brackets on the other side. So it'll be x plus 3. Then I have x squared minus 4x minus 3x plus 12. Right? So I can combine those. So now I have -4x plus 3 x squared. Then I combined these two like terms right here. Right? Which gives me -7x plus 12. Right? So now what do? I have to use FOIL again to expand it. Right? Because I want to get rid of the bracket. Which is equal to -4x cubed. Right? X times x squared. X cubed minus x times 7x becomes 7x squared plus 12x. Right? So the x is complete. Now I do the 3. Plus 3x squared minus 21x plus 12 times 3 should be 36. Oh no, 30, yeah, 36. So 3 times 12 is 36. Right? So now I still have the bracket, but now I know one or two things. Now I can open the bracket. How can I open the bracket? By multiplying the 4 into it. But I don't want to do that just yet. I want to combine all my like terms first. So if I say 7x squared plus 3x here, right? And I also have another one. I have this and that. Those are like terms. So let's combine our like terms and see where we are. -4x cubed. And then we have -7x squared plus 3x squared, which gives me -4x squared. 12 minus 21x, right? 12x minus 21x. What does that give me? It gives me -9x plus 36, right? Okay, so now from here, what do? From here, I multiply the 4 into the bracket, right? So when I multiply the 4 into the bracket, I end up with 4x cubed plus 16x squared minus 48. No. 9 times 4 gives me 36x, right? Plus 36 times 4 gives me 144. Oh, sorry, I forgot to take into account my sign. Okay, -4 times x cubed gives me -4. -4 times -4 gives me +16. -4 times -9 gives me +36. -4 times +36 gives me -144. Right? So this is what I have. I have -4x cubed plus 16x squared plus 36x minus 144. Right? So what does this mean? It means that I know now what A, B, and C and D are. How? Because I remember my equation, my general equation of a cubic function says that the first coefficient of x cubed is equal to A. The coefficient of x squared is equal to B. As you can tell from the question, yeah. B is the coefficient of x squared. So I know that B is equal to 16. C therefore is equal to 36. and D is equal to negative 144. The y-intercept is negative 144. And I have basically solved this equation. This wasn't too hard. This was easy. Free marks. Take your free marks. Do not leave your free marks. Who's going to take them for you? Your mom. No, she's not going to take them for you. Okay? It's your chance to do something. Okay, also, another thing that I have to mention about x-intercepts, right? There is another variation of this formula here. Right? There's a variation of this formula. That variation is caused by when you have a turning point that's also the same as your x-intercept. Boom! Okay? What do I mean by that? What I mean is when I have, let's say, x plus 2, then I have x plus 2, then I have x minus 1, right? These are my x-intercepts, right? So what can I see over here? I can see that I have two intercepts that are exactly the same, right? If I combine them, it becomes x plus 2 squared x minus 1 is equal to 0. So that's what it looks like if I combine them. So what does it mean? It means that my y-intercept formula should look a little different when I have when I have intercepts that are the same. What does it mean? It means that it becomes my graph, let's say it looks like this. Right? That's what my graph looks like. And if you can see for yourself, I only have two x-intercepts, right? But it's a cubic function. I need to have 3 intercepts. But I do have 3 intercepts. It's just that 2 of them are the same, right? Both of them are -2 and the other one is 1, right? So what does it mean for my intercept formula? My intercept formula becomes y is equal to a, then it becomes x minus r1 times x minus r2 squared. As you can see, this only makes sense. Why? Because look at this equation, x minus r2 squared, right? So that's exactly what happens. That's the variation of your intercept formula. So this will be 2 and that'll be 1. Right? So that's basically it on so yeah, basically that's what it is on intercept when you are given an x-intercept, right? Let's look at the next part. When we are given, let's say, both turning points, or we are given turning point and the coordinates. Let's look at that for example. Let's look at an example. Okay, so my example 1 says, example 1, g of x is equal to 10x cubed minus bx squared plus cx minus d. Right? It says g of x is equal to 10x cubed minus bx squared plus cx minus d, right? Now you are given stationary point or a turning point, and it's a 3, 7 and b is 5 and -2. So let's say you are given both of your turning points. You're given 2 turning points, right? A and b. Now they say find b, c and d. What? How do I find 3 unknowns when I only have 2 points, right? Is that your question? If it's your question, it makes sense. It's understandable to ask that question. So what do I do? What do I know about turning points? Let's just go back to the basics. What I know about turning points is that g prime of x is equal to 0. So let's start there. Let's look at g prime of x. What is g prime of x? My g prime of x is equal to 30x squared minus 2bx plus c, right? So I work with the variables that are unknown. I work with those variables that do not have any values, those arbitrary values, right? So b and c, right? I know what g prime of x is, right? But now, what do I know about g prime of x at a turning point? It's equal to 0. The gradient at a turning point is equal to 0, right? Because it's a straight horizontal line, right? So now, what do? I'm stuck. What can I do now? No, I'm not stuck because now I can use my turning points, right? I can substitute my turning point into these equations. So equation 1. My first equation, I will substitute a. 3 and 7. This is what I will substitute into that equation there. The equation that's equal to 0. Right? So if I substitute 3 and 7, right, I end up with 3 squared minus 2b.
University children are out here getting pregnant for fun. So I'm just gonna tell you, be careful out there. Be careful when you're seeing so many boys that you've never seen in your school, or so many girls that you've never seen. It's a matter of control. Be careful. You end up being part of the stat.
Times 3 plus c is equal to 0, right? So let me solve for this. If I solve for this, I'll end up with 270 minus 6b plus c is equal to 0. But I want to write this in terms of c because I feel like this will simplify everything. So I'll make the c is equal to positive 6b minus 270, and I'll call this my equation 1. So my equation 1 reads 6b minus 270. So can I make another equation? Yes, I can. How? Let me substitute the second turning point that I have. What is my second turning point? It's 5 and negative 2, right? So if I substitute 5 and negative 2, which is 30 times 5 squared minus 2b times negative 2, times 5 because it's all x, plus c is equal to 0, right? So this is my second equation. So let me work with my second equation. Let's see, what do I get? If I solve for this, I'll end up with 750 minus 10b plus c is equal to 0. That is my equation 2. So now I have two equations. What do I do when I have two equations? Now I can substitute this equation into this equation, and I only have one variable that will be missing, and that variable would be b, right? So b would be my only missing variable. So now let's see, how do I get along by doing it? I substitute it, and I'll end up with 750 minus 10b plus 6b minus 270 is equal to 0, right? This is what I have as a substituting my equation 1. So 1 into 2, right? 1 into 2, equation 1 into equation 2. That's what I end up with. And my value for b, if I solve this nicely, b is equal to 120. I don't need to go through that process because you should know how to do that, right? We'll go practice more on that. And then, so of course, if I can find c by just substituting back into that formula there, because now I have b. So if I substitute c into that, b into this equation, I end up with 450, right? And those are my equations, those are my values. I have b, c, and I have a. How do I find d? I can find what d is by substituting. Let me just write it down. Let's see what I have now. What I have now is g of x is equal to 10x cubed minus 120 x squared plus 450 x minus d, right? This is what I have, but I'm still missing d. I don't know what d is. How do I find what d is? I take one of these points, one of these turning points. I can either take b or I can take a, right? It doesn't matter which point you use because it will result you in the same answer. So if I substitute, let's say point A, let me use point A, 3 and 7, right? If I substitute, wherever I see a y, I'll put 7, so this will be 7, and it'll be 10 times 3 cubed minus 120 x squared, 3 squared plus 450 times 3 minus d, right? If I do that, I'll end up with
D is equal to 533. These are huge numbers because that's my equation. I wrote it out in a big number. I started with a 10. So this is my final answer. My final answer for D is 5333, right? I can leave it like this because they didn't ask me to write down an equation, right? They said find the values of C, A, B, C, and D, right? So that was my question. Find B, C, and D, right? If they also say find A, you already know A is 10, right? So basically that's it with that's basically the concept of all these things. They are not that complicated. They're pretty straightforward if you really ask me. So you should bang these marks, get your marks, get your, this paper one, right? Yeah, get your paper one going, right? Boom.